Good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's session on Quick Review series for BSc Nursing second year students. I'm Priyanka Jain from the marketing team of Elsevier, and together with my colleague Mehak Dhingra, we will be moderating the session today. But before we could start with the session, I would like to quickly brief you with a few basic instructions so that we can all maintain the decorum here. So all of you are kept on mute by default and you will not be able to unmute yourself during this course of session. So in case there is any concern or if you want to ask any question, then please write it only in the Q&A tab that is seen at the bottom panel of your screen. If you are using a phone, that it will appear at the top of your screen. And at the end of the presentation, Dr. Rao will answer all your questions. And just in case, depending upon the time, if any question remains unanswered, we will respond to it after the presentation in a few days through email. Also, there will be some polling questions in between the session and the participation is anonymous. So please do respond and share your opinion with us. So with this, we have with us our esteemed speaker, Dr. Anu Kaushik, and she will guide you all with some quick study tips to prepare for your exams. Dr. Anu Kaushik is a dynamic nursing professional with 23 years of rich experience in nursing training, education, strategic planning, and team management. She is currently working with Cloud9 Group of Hospitals as Director of Nursing. Dr. Kaushik started her career as a bedside nurse in Holy Family Hospital and then moved to public health nurse role in Maulana Azad Medical College. She then joined corporate groups like Max, Fortis, and Columbia Asia. Dr. Kaushik has been an outstanding academician with distinction during her post-graduation from RAK College of Nursing, New Delhi. She completed her doctorate in nursing in 2016 and visited Atlanta, USA to present her research findings at Women Health Congress. She has many national and international publications to her credit. She is the editor of Infusion Nursing Journal of India and has co-authored the Standards of Nursing Practice. Apart from adapting the Saunders Comprehensive Review of NCLX Exam South Asia Edition and Baylius Nurses Dictionary, she has also authored the Quick Review series for BSc Nursing first and second year. Welcome, Dr. Kaushik. I now hand it over to you to take this session forward.
Thank you for the warm introduction. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for taking out time to be part of this webinar today. And I'm truly excited to be here to share my experience with all of you. I know being student is different and difficult, especially now in the COVID times where we are so all so stranded at our homes. We are not able to go to the college, probably not have the normal classroom training experience or the demonstrations. And I guess you have your exams coming around the corner, so there is a lot of anxiety, a lot of uncertainty, and you really do not know how to study and what to study, right? So I'm very confident that after today's webinar, you all will be equipped with a lot of tricks and strategies that will help you to plan and prioritize your training program. And what if I told you that you could become twice as much more, I would say, effective and more efficient by just using those simple tricks that we are going to discuss in a while, right? So let's hit it, guys. It's going to be a very, very interesting session. So now there are two sets of students that we come across, the ones who keep on studying, but are not happy because they don't get the results. And there are some set of students who are, study for a very little time, but they do very well in the exam. So what is it that they do differently? And that's something that we need to figure it out today. So the first question that comes to our mind is, when it comes to studying, the first question is what to study, right? So you do not know. We've got ocean of knowledge available. We've got multiple subjects, multiple subunits, where to start, what to be, given more importance, and then you are actually, in a kind of a, I would say, perplexed or a confused state. So it's very important to know that 30 to 40% of your syllabus actually will get you 70% of marks. Isn't it interesting? So that means, it means you just study, 30 or 40% of the syllabus, and that will ensure that you get a 70% marks. But it doesn't mean that you don't study the rest of the topics. I'm just giving you an overview that how should you plan and how much time you should dedicate to each unit or to a subunit, because maybe you have 10 chapters and there are some chapters which have more weightage. So definitely if they have more weightage, they need more of your time, and more of your time means because they will get you or fetch you more marks. So I'm going to show and talk about some keywords, because the keywords are nothing but your hours or the marks that you need to focus on. So let's quickly go on to the next table and see. Now suppose you got a very limited time available at your hand and you have to study like a very big subject, that's medical surgical nursing, and you got these systems that are being listed on the table. And then how would you study? Like, would you study and give equal time to all the systems, or would you probably pay attention to the most important systems and then plan your study? So let me quickly give you an example now here. So if you remember my previous slide, it talked about 30 to 40% of your syllabus will get you 70% marks, right? So if you see here, I have actually put them in the descending order, right? So your cardiovascular system actually has 15%, and musculoskeletal and GI system has 13 and 20. So if you have an option to study, I'm sure any smart student would probably look at the first four, chapters or the systems, because they actually contribute more than 70% marks in the whole 100 marks paper. So I'm not saying that you please leave the rest of the system. No, I'm just trying to say how you should study, what system should get more marks and what system should get more of your time in preparing. Okay, so this is something that I would want you to really emphasize. And please remember, you're not aiming only for getting good marks, but you're also aiming at preparing for the bigger goals. That means you have probably goals of getting into a government job, so you have to clear a government exam, or you have to clear some overseas exam. So when you're studying, you don't please study only for getting the marks in the college, but you please study in a holistic way, so that when you're studying cardiovascular, you study for the theory exam, but at the same time, please practice at least minimum 100 questions, MCQs related to that system, because that will really strengthen your concepts and will give you a very good hang of the system. Okay, so this way you will actually be preparing yourself for the other exams also. Like normally I hear very often that the students say that after my exam I will take 1 year break, I will take 6 months break and prepare for the exam. You really don't have to do that. You can actually plan your studies in such a way that you are able to study simultaneously for your college exam and for your competitive exams at the same time. So now, so this was just one example to show. Similarly, you can prepare for other subjects, and you can put weightage and plan your timetable accordingly. So this is one smart strategy that all of you should do that. So once you have done that, now let's talk about, you have identified now the systems. So the next task should be, what should I study in that system? Because now you know that this system has this much weightage. So what is the most important thing that I should study in that system? So what you should do is, you refer to your class notes, you refer to what your teacher says, and you also refer to the previous year question papers and see what are the most commonly asked questions in this particular system, and you make a list of them. So when you are studying, okay, now when I'm studying endocrine system, I need to study all of this. Definitely, yes. And if I get time, I can study more. But this is definitely a yes for studying for the exam. So when you, and we all know that textbooks are not thrillers. So the moment you start, to read, we all get bored. We get distracted to our phones, laptops. We start feeling sleepy. If you have any of these, you are very normal. Okay, so this is something that all of us experience, and I have also experienced it when I was a student. So before we move forward, can we have the polling question number 1, please? Do you refer to previous year question papers before going for your final exam? Yes or no? Would like to know this. Can we have the answers, please? Yes, very good. So 96% of the students do refer, to previous year question papers before attempting the final exam. I think this is very smart. Good going. Keep it up. Okay. So now we are going to talk about some of the strategies or the tricks that may help you, to remember the different different and difficult concepts, which will help you to remember them better and retain them better. So like for example, if I were to ask you, what is keratophobia? I'm sure some of you may already know it, but many of us probably don't know what is keratophobia. So how do I remember this? I know what is phobia, so it is some fear, but I don't know what is keratophobia. So now if you look at this picture, what does it talk? It shows some lightning, thunder, and this boy is fearful of that. So how I remember this is I will say, okay, this boy is Karen. Karen is afraid of lightning and thunder. So the way I have devised it now, keratophobia for me is Karen is afraid of lightning and thunder. So when this word comes to me, I will be very, very confident to answer this question because I have now found out a very smart way to remember this. Now let's move on to the next question. So what is claustrophobia? So claustrophobia is quite a common phobia, but one small strategy to remember is just remember the first word, claus. And we know claus basically refers to Santa Claus. So remember, Santa Claus is afraid of closed chimneys. So why is he afraid of closed chimneys? Because he is not able to pass it through, and he's not able to give the gifts. So claustrophobia basically refers to fear of closed places. So, and the way to remember is very simple. Santa Claus, does not like closed or hates closed chimneys. So this is just small tricks that I wanted to talk to you guys. So my experience as a student, I think transition from first year to second year is a big leap. You have a lot of difficult and a lot of content is being added in the second year. You have more clinical exposure. You feel, too information loaded. Then there is certain sense of responsibility. Then you have a lot of assignments, a lot of clinical tasks to be done. And I would just like to want to share one particular topic with you because I remember it very, very clearly. When I was a student, I was actually there was a question in the exam that write down the pathophysiology of the blood circulation. Trust me, it was a 15 minutes question, and whatever I knew about this particular topic, starting from the chambers, etc., I kept on writing because I knew this topic so well, and I spent 1 hour attempting this particular question, though it was only for 15 marks, and as a result of which I lost on attempting 3 questions in the main exam. So it's very important to time. It's not important. Sometimes we know so much in a topic and we are so overwhelmed, when we're attempting this question. So we really do not know, where to stop. So it's very important to, have that hard stop deadline. And strategies which were very successful is like as I said in the beginning, that make it a point to practice, MCQs along with your subject so that you are able to strengthen your knowledge base and your concepts become very, very clear. Okay, let's move on to the next polling question, please. Are you able to finish your exam within the stipulated time frame? Yes or no? Okay, can we have the answers, please? Okay, so this is interesting. So we've got 52% people saying yes and 48% people saying no. So I think this is a problem which with many of us. So we'll try to address that. Yeah. So now there's something very interesting, a 10% rule. So if I were to show you these 10 flashcards, you know, it has been scientifically proven and shown that most of the people will remember the first and the last names. And they will be, I'm not saying that they will not remember the middle name, but generally, almost all the people will remember the first and the last flashcard. Why? Because it has been seen that what is being taught in the beginning and what is being taught in the last stays with you. So how do we apply this rule in our learning curve? So let's take example of two students here. So there is student one who actually studies at a 90 minutes non-stop, like 1.5 hours. He or she says, I'm not going to go anywhere. I'm going to just study. And there is another student who doesn't follow this, but studies for 90 minutes, but takes 30 minutes study block and followed by a 5 minutes break, and then 30 minutes, then break, and then 30 minutes. So I'm sure the student one will feel very good about it because the student will say, I've been able to, sit and study for 1.5 hours. But was it really good? That's something that we really need to think and do a, I would say introspection, because it can only give you a psychological, placebo or, happiness, because you will see, okay, but scientifically it has been shown, referring to our 10% rule. If you study for 90 minutes, your 10 minutes in the beginning and the 10 minutes in the last are the most productive time. That means you have been able to retain maximum knowledge in that time. So what does it mean? Your 70 minutes was bad and 20 minutes was good. Whereas in the case of student 2, it was 30 minutes bad and 60 minutes good. So student 2 is a smarter student when it comes to studying. So that is what we say is study in chunks or blocks, not at a stretch, because studying at stretch may make you feel good, but it really doesn't do you good, right? And sometimes it will also happen is that you will experience that, oh my God, my 30 minutes are over, but I was reading this topic and it is not finished. So what do I do? So stop, have a hard stop for 30 minutes. You come back and resume your topic which was unfinished, because the Zermach effect says that topics which are unfinished when you are studying, they are kind of always going to cause you a lot of curiosity. So you will come back to them and you will try to find an answer for them. So it's okay to have unfinished topics, pondering over for a while, because you will retain them better when you come back and study them in your next study block. Yeah, the next tip that I would want to give it to you guys is 20-80% rule. That when we start studying, what the normal tendency is that we start reading a chapter, and read it, and we think that we will revise it after the chapter is over, but it doesn't work that way, because your mind has I would say a capacity to absorb information. So what has been found a very smart study strategy is, you study for 20 minutes and then revise. That means whatever is your total time. So what they're saying is, you study for small portion and then you review it, mentally, or write it down that, okay, I studied this. Okay, let me quickly review and then once you are confident that what you have studied, you're confident, then you move on to the next topic and then review, then move to the third topic and then review. So this is one strategy where you are studying in small portions, but you're giving more time for absorption, assimilation, and retention. Okay, so this is something that I would want you to really pay attention to. Third is spaced repetition. So what does it mean? Suppose you are studying, medical, surgical, say endocrine system, right? And or you have decided that, okay, this week I'm going to study my medical surgical subjects. Next week I'm going to study, another set of subjects, and so on. But this is the most I would say harmful thing that you can do in your planning. Don't ever try to finish one block of subjects in one go, because this is not a smart strategy, because it has been shown the more variety of topics that you study during the daytime will help you to absorb better. So what I'm trying to say here is probably you can say in a day I'm going to have 3 subjects. So I will have medical surgical, or maybe I can have some community topic, and maybe I can keep some time for my mock test or revision. So what you say is, for example, you're studying cardiovascular, then probably after lunch you put some community topic. So when you're studying cardiovascular, okay, don't have that full 3 hours block being given to cardiovascular to finish. What you need to do is, okay, 1 hour in cardiovascular I will probably give maybe 1 hour time to study the basic anatomy. So today I will study about anatomy. Maybe tomorrow you talk about physiology. Third day you talk about the disease condition. Then you move on to the diagnostic test and the interpretation and nursing management. So this is how your spread should be, not an attempt to finish everything in one go, because it has been scientifically seen that when you study a big topic and divide it into subtopics, you are able to remember it much better. And don't also try to think that if I finish medical surgical, then I will have a lot of relaxation because it's one major topic subject that keeps on bothering me. Don't do that, because whatever you have studied maybe a month ago, and after that you come back, you probably don't remember because you have not adopted the right strategy. The next is taking notes. This is something I would really want to pay attention to. You should always go to the class with some pre-read before the topic. So your teacher, suppose, is teaching an important topic, and then you should just not say, okay, you are hearing it for the first time because your teacher is speaking. You should do some good homework, read about it, so that when the teacher is teaching, you are able to relate better, and you are also able to take good notes, because you have some idea about the topic. And what I have also seen is that some students actually type the notes after they come back, because they now organize them from an examination point of view. So if you see on the right now, so you have taken the notes as it is in a sequential manner, but now you want to realign them from an examination point of view. What are the types of questions that comes in diagnostic test, nursing interventions, disease condition. So you are realigning. The advantage of typing them is that you can move them here and there afterwards, but once you write them in the notebook, you are kind of fixed. And typing the notes or writing the notes with your hands actually gives you a very good hold on the subject, because you are thoroughly revising them. And interestingly, that there is a study which is being done by Gamble, which is like a historical research study, which says that your notes quality and your percentage of marks will be totally dependent upon where you sit in the class. So if you are a front bencher, it means you are one serious student who wants to take good notes, and you will also, and it has been also seen, the front bench seaters get good marks. Then the second row and the last benchers, they probably don't take good notes, and also they don't seem to have good results either. Okay, so your sitting in the class also matters a lot. And study like a teacher. I think this is really very important, and this I have personally experienced it. When I was a student, I was like the master of ECG interpretation in my class. Not that I liked ECG, but I really found it very, very difficult, and I really said that there is no shortcut. I'm going to definitely learn it. And then I spent many hours on strengthening my knowledge. I refer to actual ECG strips, try to understand them, get them corrected with the cardiologist, and I really became master of it. And then I was like my class hero, and I said, okay, now I'm going to teach it to my friends. So when I was teaching them, I was actually doing good to them, but I was doing more good to myself, because by virtue of teaching them again and again, I became so confident and so I would say competent that that knowledge is still with me, and I can confidently read the various complex ECGs even now. So this is important. When you become like a teacher, you actually learn a lot by teaching others. Let's follow the SQ3R rule. This is something very interesting. So when you start studying, what is the normal practice that we do? The normal thing that we do is we open the book, we start reading from the first page and then, keep on flipping through the pages as we read through. But what it says is the best way to, start studying is do a quick through of your chapter by flipping the pages. Look at the questions at the back. Why look at the questions at the back is for a very simple reason. When you are reading the main content, you will be able to relate. Okay, oh yeah, this was a question that was being asked in the, in the back. So I will pay more attention to that. And also the rule that I have already said is 20% read and 80% revise and space repetition. That means don't study a big chunk together. So follow this advice and you will really find this very, very useful. Mnemonics. I think mnemonics are everybody's favorite, and I personally have used a lot of mnemonics, and I still do use it for some complex terms. So mnemonics are very useful for anatomy, physiology, for disease conditions management, for signs and symptoms, and for any event which is sequential in event, right? It moves on from one step to another. But word of caution, this is not very useful for the pharmacology. I have personally not found mnemonics very useful for pharmacology, because I got a lot of errors and I got really confused. So I have stopped using mnemonics now for the pharmacology piece. And I would also one piece of information is, don't have too many mnemonics, because if you have too many mnemonics, then you actually get so jumbled up. Oh my God, okay, I made this mnemonic for which topic, which disease condition. So have for mnemonics for very selective disease. If you start making mnemonics for everything, I'm sure you're going to be flooded and you're going to be lost completely. So make smart mnemonics and choose them wisely. So I've given you some examples of mnemonics on like the complications. So oral contraceptive like eggs, and there is one on the right hand side. So you can make and choose accordingly. There are a lot of mnemonics already available online, and I chose this one particular because this is one of the very common questions that comes in the exams is on the kidney function. So the best way to remember is a wet bed, because we know kidneys associated with the formation of urine. So we will be able to relate better a wet bed, and then you can bifurcate it and break down further. Okay, what does a WETBED stand for, and then you will be able to remember it better. Now there is something called as acrostics. These are actually an extension of the mnemonics. So if you see in mnemonics, we use one word meaning something, but in case of acrostics, it's not a word, it's actually a sentence. So for example, if I want to remember what are the medicines used in case of Parkinson's disease, so I probably may not remember ALBM, right? So maybe I can make an interesting sentence like all loves boxing matches. So and why I can relate it by all Parkinson's patients love boxing matches, but probably they are not able to play. So when I remember all loves boxing matches, so I know A stands for this, L stands for this, B and N. So this is also one way by which you can make things easy for you to remember. So now, for example, if I give you a quickly task, okay, develop a mnemonic for a 10 organ system, then probably you can come up with something. And I just created one when I was preparing this presentation, that is nicer drums. So each one of them has a different meaning, right? Okay, we all struggle, I think, and I still remember, in learning definitions. So the definitions have always been very painful, to remember. But I must tell you that there were a lot of classmates of mine who would remember definition word for word. But I was not of that kind. I always, used to forget them. So what I realized was that the best way to remember definition is to understand them and should be able to reproduce them. So for example, if there is a definition of perioperative nursing, so like the classical example is a perioperative nursing is a term used to describe the nursing functions in the total surgical experience of the patient, pre-operative, intraoperative and post-operative. However, the same definition actually can be put by another simple sentence, and then and the three stages can actually be put it as pre-operative phase, intraoperative phase and post-operative phase, and then but it's conveying the same meaning, but it has been put in the in your own words, and which is very simple to reproduce. So what is the right way to learn a definition, or what is the wrong way to? So I say, for me, wrong way is word for word, but it may be right for somebody. Like, so I would say, like, so right word, if it may be right for those who are able to remember, but I think more than that, even if you are able to remember word for word, but you should be able to understand the meaning of each word in the definition. Okay, just in case you are not able to reproduce, you should be able to, put it in your own words, and it will be really a cherry on the top if you can give an example. So if you are talking about any, any definition where you have like some history of nursing definition, or talking about some particular era, if you can give that example, timelines, date, values, then you actually stand a very good chance to get a full mark in that definition. One of the strategies that I have also used, and I see that is working out pretty well for many students, is to form up, a visual picture. Like, for example, like if you talk about the type 2 diabetes, what are the common questions that are being asked related to type 2 diabetes. So when you see this lady type, this is a pure a classical example of a type 2 diabetes. So a sedentary lifestyle, she's like having a very high BP, her energy level is low, she's fatigued, she's eating, she's obese, she's having recurrent infection. You can see her feet having a big boil, she's having polyuria, polyphagia, etc., etc. So when you remember this picture, if it comes in the exam, I'm sure you will be able to recall many of the points by remembering this lady. Okay, so sometimes it is also good to have this kind of visual imagination, and you will see that there are plenty available, to help you understand, especially the disease condition. They really turn out to be, very useful. Have a dedicated place to study, clutter-free, noise-free, and a good ventilation, because a quiet place is needed for really studying well. And a timetable, I would say, is I would say can do magic if you really plan it well. So how do you actually plan a timetable? So you know that your exams are coming, say maybe 2 months from now. So should you prepare a timetable like this, like subject 1, okay, subject 2, subject 3, like that? No. You should prepare your timetable backwards. You should say, okay, my exams are starting 2 months from now. So, okay, I've got these many days, these many hours, and these many subjects. So first you calculate the total hours that you have at hand. Then you divide it by the total number of subjects. So you will get number of hours that you can dedicate per subject. Then you dedicate. Then you divide. Then you will get. Then you divide it by your daily hours that you can study. So for example, you calculate and you find out that you can study 8 hours a day. So now you divide, okay, I have got 8 hours. So I will study 2 hours, one subject, next 2 hours, some subject, and you divide. I do a mock test. I will do a YouTube watching for a procedure. I don't know how you want to divide it, but divide it in such a way that you are giving equal time to equal subject, and also follow the same trick that we said. More marks means more weightage means more time. Okay, and please remember that, please create a very realistic timetable. Don't put minute by minute details, tracking of your time. It really doesn't work out. And have some time for social networking, give some time for watching TV, or accessing your phone, because if you don't do that, then I don't think you would be able to adhere to the time. You will get so frustrated that you will just give it up, and we don't want you to do that. And we can prepare a checklist subject wise. Okay, so these are the topics that I was supposed to study. Okay, today Monday, so I've done this, put a tick mark. So when you do all this, it really gives you a good feeling, and you will feel really very, very happy about it. Now, when you're preparing the timetable, the only thing that I would want you to have one word of caution and an advice, that have the most challenging topic in the beginning, because when we start studying, sometimes people also call it as a golden hour, and it's always advisable to study the difficult topics in the morning, and then followed by the difficulty level in the descending order. So just try doing that. And if you see, I just given you a quick outline. You can see there a lot of breaks, a lot of eatables, and a lot of exercise so that you are fully motivated to follow your timetable. The next thing is sleep. There are people who study so hard they don't get even 3 hours or 4 hours of sleep. That is not good at all. You need to at least sleep for 7.5 hours, okay? Because sleep is your brain food. If you don't sleep well, you will not be able to study well. It's a very, very direct, correlation. So if you want to study well, you need to sleep well because your brain needs rest, and then your brain will be energized to learn more and retain more after a good break. Exercise, very important, because exercise releases endomorphins. Endomorphins are your happy hormones, which will keep you happy, and it is very important to stay happy while studying. Nutrition plays a pivotal role. You need to take good protein diet and complex carbohydrates because they are going to be good source of your energy. Don't take simple carbohydrates like pizza, your burgers and fried items. They're going to make you feel sleepy and lethargic. Don't do that, right? Yeah, this is my favorite quote. Tomorrow is probably the busiest day. And why I say so, because every time we start something, okay, I'll start studying from tomorrow. Okay, I'll start studying or doing exercise from tomorrow. Because if everything is getting postponed for tomorrow, then tomorrow is going to be probably the busiest day in our lives. But unfortunately, that tomorrow never comes up, right? So whatever we are discussing is going to really look back and reflect, and you will always say, oh, I wish I had started doing this, sometime earlier. So we were talking about we are on a mission. And what is a mission? Mission is to keep distractions away. And the biggest distraction right now for all of us is our mobile phones, our Netflix, right? And PUBG, I think a lot of people are playing PUBG games also. TikTok, thankfully, is now not there. So how do we, ensure that, we don't, waste our time, and so put your phone when you're studying, set some ground rules for your study. No phones in your study area. And if it is there, then you have to put it on a DND, and you will promise to yourself that I'm not going to see my phone when I'm studying, because it has been seen that when you are studying and if you see a notification or a WhatsApp message on your phone and you are tempted to open, and the moment you do that, you are losing on your concentration by 15 minutes. Okay, so that means it will take you another 15 minutes to come back to your pre-attention level. And let me tell you, attention is like a muscle. You need to develop it. You need to harness it. And you need to have, and you can only do it by having a control on your self-discipline. Yeah. Having a co-partner. Some people like this, they really find this strategy very useful, but some people find it as a distraction because they end up having a lot of, talks, discussions, or gossip. If it doesn't work out for you, then probably you can, refrain from having it. But I have seen it has really worked out well for me, because what we used to do was we were a group of 4 friends, and we used to divide topics, and we used to say, okay, we will come back after 1 hour and we will teach these topics to the remaining 3, and this really helped us to understand the concepts better. And we used to have a lot of mock tests being done together, and we used to time it, and we used to see each other paper and see what is right, what is wrong, and we used to learn from each other, and it turns out to be really a good experience. And as I said, that please keep on rewarding yourself for every milestone that you achieve. So for example, if a day timetable has been achieved, you please put a tick mark on the calendar and you say, wow, good job done, because you have adhered to your promise. And similarly, you must have prepared a subject-wise checklist also that I mentioned in the beginning. So you please put a tick mark. Okay, so for medical surgical, I was supposed to study today cardiovascular system, and I was supposed to study the physiology of blood circulation. I've done that, tick. So that keep a checklist, because checklists are constant checks, and also send I would say immediate rewarding also, because you see something getting accomplished within time. And I would really urge all of you to get out of your laziness and procrastination. What is procrastination? Procrastination is you keep on postponing things for tomorrow, for a later date. Okay, I will start doing it. Okay, I will do it. I'm too lazy. I'm feeling too tired. Okay. So I really love this quote. It says laziness and procrastination are like your credit cards. You enjoy them till you don't get the bills. So the moment you see your credit card bills, oh my God, what did I do? Why did I spend so much? So similarly, the results of your laziness and procrastination, you will get it at a time when it is going to be too late, and you will regret, oh my God, why I did that. I should not have done that. So when you're doing all these tricks, there are chances that you may go back to your old way of studying, or old way of becoming lax. But you need to pull yourself up again and again. Keep distractions away, and this is very, very true. Distraction and direction are inversely proportional. What does it mean? If your distraction is high, your direction or goal is going to be low. If your direction is high, then your distraction is going to be low. So that means if you focus, you will keep away all the distractions away from your life, right? Cultivate passion. If there is a topic that you don't like, you please go on to different ways of learning. There is Khan Academy. There is YouTube available. There are a lot of nursing sites where you see a video of that particular procedure or of that disease condition, and you will see that, oh yes, this is something very interesting, and okay, now I've seen the visual image or the visual video. Then you are able to relate better with the textbook. Reward yourself again and again. And please remember that you are responsible for your life, your direction, your goal. Nobody else can guide you or misguide you. You will be the only person responsible for the outcomes. Very important, please take a mock test before your exam, and time yourself. Take at least 2 mock tests per subject before your final exam. Get it corrected by your teacher or by your colleagues. Learn from your mistakes, and if possible, you can also adopt Kahoot. Kahoot is basically an online game where all your classmates can get connected to one platform, and where you can keep on posting questions, and you can all play and learn the basic so the MCQs that I was talking about. So you can say, okay guys, you have studied one system today, let's post some MCQs related to the topic, and let's see who answers them fastest, and also the correct answers. Now, tips for attempting question in exam. I think this is something that all of us would want to really pay attention to. So suppose you get a question on any disease condition. So, and I have taken an example here of the COPD. So if you see here, outline, what is it that I'm going to write in this question paper? So put your headings in your mind, and then start attempting the question. And please highlight your headings, underline them, and try to have a lot of flow diagrams, tables in your answers, because they immediately catch the teacher's attention. Because no teacher actually, like I myself has been a teacher, it's very boring, to read those big paragraphs one after the other. When the same answer is being written by a student in a kind of a flow chart, very well labeled tables, it really, gets you good mark. And your handwriting, mind you, your handwriting has to be really, I'm not saying that it has to be, like calligraphy writing, but definitely it should be readable. Try to write big. There are some students who write so small, that is so strenuous for the teacher to read. So write big, space them out. You have enough pages to write, and do a good job, and make diagrams which are simple and very well labeled. Don't try to make diagrams which you have seen in the text, because they are very difficult to reproduce. So before exams, practice some diagrams that you can expect in an exam. And we know that there are some diagrams which are definitely commonly asked. So I've taken a quick snapshot of some of the questions, like a short note on what is the difference between hypocalcemia and hypercalcemia. So if you see here, the way it has been defined, like, so definition for both, the causes for both, sign and symptoms, then investigation and management. So like when the teacher is going to see this kind of an answer, she will be really very, I would say happy, because she says, okay, this person has very clearly, outlined the differences, and it's very specific. It's very easy to check. And as a student, when you learn from this kind of a table, it's very easy for you to reproduce also, right? Now, this is, please pardon, maybe many of you may not be able to read it, but this was a long page. So this was on the pathophysiology of rheumatic heart disease. So you can see this available in many books as a, big paragraphs. So what we try to do here is we kind of put it in the form of a flow chart, so that it helps you to understand the concept. It helps you to reproduce it, and then you are able to also elaborate it if there is a need. So there are some questions which are also related to practical, like procedure based. So some of the QRS series 2 has some practical component question also, like common viva voce questions. What are the questions that the teacher asks during the practical exam? So, and what are the common procedures that you should really know well before your exam have been incorporated? Maybe you can have a look at them. So this is what I was telling you, that please practice, diagrams which you are able to reproduce it in your exam. System, the organs and the function, and if you are able to produce this kind of a diagram, I'm saying, and very easy to remember and very visual, it will catch the teacher's attention, and say, wow, this person knows the structure, the organs and the function, and you are in for a full mark here. So like another example that I picked up for you for a comparison, like the blood circulation here. So if you write only in maybe the student B has actually put it in a kind of a flow diagram or a chart, it becomes very, very simple to understand, and the examiner will also know, okay, this person knows the concept well, and then probably the examiner doesn't pay much attention to the content which is being written down in the paragraphs. So when we talk about success, we see that, oh my God, there are some people who really get good marks, but trust me, a lot of dedication, a lot of hard work, good habits, and there are failures, disappointments that one goes through, but that will ultimately take you to the success. So on the day of exam, please have adequate sleep, eat a very good breakfast, as I said, and arrive at the exam center at least 15-20 minutes before, so that you don't have anxiety, carry all your ID cards, etc. Important thing, don't talk to your classmates too much about last minute revisions. I have seen personally has been really, really bad, because suddenly you realize, oh my God, I did not study this topic. This was really important. My friend has studied. What if it comes in the exam? So I would really urge all of you not to get into any discussion about the syllabus before your exam and also after your exam, because sometimes after the exam you say, okay, oh, this was a question. Okay, what did you answer for this? Okay, did you mention about this particular thing? And then you said, oh my God, oh gosh, I forgot about it. So, and then you are so demotivated. Oh God, I knew about it, but why did not write it? So please don't do that, because this is really, I don't think is a good idea, because it's going to really dishearten you, and it will demotivate you, and it probably will reduce your enthusiasm for the next exam. Very detrimental. Avoid doing this. Attempt your question paper in a sequential manner. I've been a teacher, I've been a student. I know that students have a habit of writing the questions first that they know the answer for, but it is always nice that you move in a sequential manner, because it gives an impression to the teacher that you're organized. And sometimes I've also seen people lose marks. Sometimes it get missed out also. Make diagrams, flow charts as much as possible, and quickly go through your test papers and put a tick mark after attempting it, because many times some questions do really get missed. And please read the questions before attempting, like do any 3 or 4. So if you don't read them, probably you end up attending all 5 and you waste time, and then you actually lose on other question where you probably didn't have left time, time to do the remaining question. So I think it's very important that without commitment, you will never start. But without consistency, you will never finish. And with your students, we had a very limited time, and I know that there is lot and lot that can be spoken, about the second year subjects. And we'll try whatever we discussed. I would want all of you to please start implementing, and you will see the change. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kaushik, for guiding all our participants here. I'm sure they will follow your guidance and they will excel in their exams. So so we have 8-9 minutes more to go. So it's time to take the Q&A, and depending on the time in hand, let us just start one by one and try to answer the maximum possible here. So should I read the questions to you, ma'am? Dr. Anu Kaushik, are you there?
Sure. Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So I would like to start with the most common question, which I think is asked by every second student here. And the question is that we feel it is very difficult indeed to study and remember pharmacology. So if you can share some specific tips to remember the drug names, basically something specific for pharmacology.
Okay, good. In fact, when I was a student, I also struggled with pharmacology, and as I said, that mnemonics don't work in pharmacology, and I have really messed up quite a lot. Strategies that I have adopted for pharmacology was, first of all, you divide the drugs into the different categories. Okay, so that broad classifications you should be definitely able to, like for example, if you cardiovascular system.
Ma'am, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there is some disturbance at your end.
To talk about intensive or antibiotics. Is it? Am I audible now?
It is better now. In between, we lost your words, so we couldn't get what you were saying.
Hello?
Yeah,
Priyanka?
it is better. Yeah, it is better now. You can continue, ma'am. Sorry for the interruption.
Okay, let me just repeat. Sure. No, it's okay. So what I'm saying is pharmacology is a difficult area and it's a difficult subject. So what I would suggest is you please, one of the ways that I started, actually, I'll just tell you what I did was I actually divided drugs according to the system. Okay. And then I made flashcards. So what I did was, like, you have those, small kind of postcards, which I made it with, this plain paper. So what I did was I converted each of these paper into 4. So this was one flashcard. So I wrote the drug name here. Okay. So like, for example, I've put in the name of a drug, like, for example, Voveron, for example. So I would write down the action behind. So I will say, okay, Voveron. And I will always, so I will have a stack of these flashcards with me all the time in my, and when I get time, so I would take them out. Okay, this is Voveron. So what is the action? I will say, okay, it's a painkiller. Okay. And then I look back and I say, oh yeah, I'm right. And then once I remember the action, then I also started, putting the dosage and the routes, so that, firstly I, focused on, getting their actions first, and then getting on to their routes and the dosage. And this has really, and will always be very handy, because pharmacology is not easy. It will only come with practice, and your flashcards are one of the best ways to learn pharmacology. And this has been really proven very helpful. and take a lot of, and you can always study in groups when you're having studying, and maybe you can get into a group of 5 students, and one of you can prepare one set of flashcards, and you can have a lot of quiz amongst each other, and have a lot of discussions, and create interesting ways to play with those flashcards. And trust me, this is one strategy that will really help you out.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, there is one more part of this same question. This is that, is there any correct way to link medical, surgical, nursing, and pharmacology together? Can we study them by linking together?
Yeah, very right. This is how I said, like, so for example, if you are studying like a cardiovascular system, like what I did was, like, you please classify and identify the cardiovascular disease drugs along with the be able to relate better. When you're studying, okay, in this disease condition, these the blood pressure shoots up. Okay, so these are the drugs that are available. Okay, in this condition, this is a hypertension. So what are the set of drugs that are available which increases the blood pressure? So what is the action of aspirin? So Clavix. So you will be able to relate better when you are studying the medical, surgical, and the pharmacology together. That's one of the very smart strategies too. You cannot study them in silos, for sure. You have to study them as an interrelated, because they are interrelated. Right? I hope I answered that question.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. So the next question, ma'am, I would read out is that the students say that we could not be exposed to enough practicals due to this COVID-19. So can you share some tips for the practical procedures?
Yeah. I think this is a very different and a difficult time, and I totally understand the first-hand experience is the most important experience. But because of, I would say, your constraints, you will have to now look out for other avenues which will actually give you more confidence in handling your clinical nursing, right? So one of the best way that you could do is I would really suggest is that you have one kind of nursing book procedure. For example, you are studying rise tube feeding. Let me just give you an example. So you will not get an opportunity in this time, to insert the rise tube feeding. Rise tube, you will not get to know, okay, is my rise tube at the right place? You will not get the hand-on experience of actually feeding the patient, right? So what you can do is, you can actually, after reading the procedure, go on to the various nursing resources that are available. And in fact, LZBS have a clinical solutions. There is many other resources which are available online. You go on to that procedure. So you study one procedure at a time. So you look at a nurse doing a patient assessment before an rise tube, insertion, how she is, entering or putting the rise tube, how she's checking whether it is at the right place, and how is she feeding, how is she documenting. So basically, it's not that so you will at least see somebody doing it, and you will probably get better primed and stimulated by seeing such kind of exercise. And when you actually get a real patient, I'm sure you will be much better prepared if you had only studied from a textbook. So when you see, I think the time to do it. And there are a lot of online, websites available nowadays where there are which are called as simulations. So that means they will actually give you real life, experience of doing a procedure. So if you're doing a rise tube insertion, and now they give you an option. Okay, check whether the tube is at the right place, and you have those options. So if you don't put the right option and your answer is wrong, they will say no, this is not the right way. So it will guide you as you move through the procedure, and your I would say the clinical based knowledge will really become very good. So this is, I think, the best thing that you can do at this time.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So, ma'am, as you can see, we have already reached the end of our session's time. So, I will read just one more question to you, and remaining questions we will send to you by email, and you can answer them, and we can send it later to all the participants.
Sure, sure.
So this last question is basically to know your opinion. So the student says that is it important to learn word by word all the definitions that are there, or they can understand and put it in their own words? Will their marks be reduced if they do it the other way?
Okay. Honestly, if you ask me, I have never been able to learn any definition word by word. Okay, except for some definition of nursing in the initial first year. After that, I have just given up on learning word by word, and I have always learned the definition in such a way that I'm being able to reproduce it. And the most important thing is that when you're reproducing it, it should convey the same meaning and intent. Okay, and if you are able to do that, I have not seen anybody. In fact, I myself have been a teacher. I have never deducted anybody's mark, because for me, what is more important is, does my student know what does this what is the meaning of that word? If she is able to reproduce it, and as I said in one of the slides, that if you can actually also give one example along with the definition, right, that will actually give you a cherry on the top. You will be able to, the teacher will understand, okay, though she has not put it word by word, but she knows the meaning and she's elaborated it within an example. So I think that should be really good. Don't waste your time in remembering word by word. It doesn't help. It doesn't help.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks a lot for the suggestions, for the guidance that you have given today. So before we close, I would like to tell all the participants that a recording of this session and the certificate of participation will be shared with you in a few days. But before we leave, there is a question that Dr. Kaushik would want you to answer. So it is there on the screen right now. Please give your opinions in the Q&A, and it will help us know your opinion on whether to do the subject-wise sessions on important topics or not. So please give us your opinions by typing your answers yes or no in the Q&A tab.
See, we had this limited time frame, and we wanted to really cover a lot of things, but we had to also prioritize. So we would want to know that if you really think that subject wise we can take sessions for you, like a medical surgical, and talk about what are the important things that you need to know about each subject separately, the long question, the short question, the values, the diagnosis, that can be really thought about, because we want you to really study smart, and also be able to achieve your bigger goals in life, and crack all the nursing exams that you aspire to attempt in future. So it's very important for us to get your feedback on this particular question, because that will decide whether we would want to do the similar webinars on these topics in future.
Ma'am, we have received a lot of responses, and the responses are keep pouring in. So by the time the students are giving their responses, any parting words from your end before we could close this session?
Yeah, I think it's been truly a wonderful experience, and I can really relate with all the students who've been part of this webinar today. See, just remember one thing, that if you have to climb a mountain, it does not get shorter by waiting. So at the exams, we have to really excel in whatever we do. So let's not get into any procrastination, laziness. Let's take charge of our life, and practice self-discipline, and put in a lot of efforts. And most important is value time, because once the time goes, it never comes back. And these are your golden times of life. These are your foundation years. So let's understand them very well, and be a very successful nurse wherever we go. Thank you so much, all of you. Thank you. Thank you, Azivas, for giving me this opportunity for a wonderful connect with the students today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kaushik, and thank you once again to all the participants for joining us today. All the very best for the exams. Thank you.
Thank you.